Can a nation's ancient soul survive a complete structural revolution in just one generation? This is the central inquiry of the 76th most significant event in human history. I am reporting from a site where the old world of the samurai met the unstoppable force of modernity. Welcome to our in-depth analysis of the Meiji Restoration. This was not merely a change in leadership, but a total reconfiguration of Japan's identity, catapulting a feudal island nation into the global industrial spotlight. To understand this rebirth, we must first examine the isolated feudal landscape of the Edo period, where tradition was enforced by the sword for centuries. During the Edo period, Japan was governed by a complex feudal system where the Tokugawa shogunate maintained absolute control through a series of rigid laws. The nation was divided into approximately 250 domains, each ruled by a daimyo whose loyalty was strictly monitored by the central government. By the mid-19th century, however, the pressure from Western powers seeking trade began to erode the shogunate's isolationist policies from the outside in. The arrival of Commodore Perry's black ships in 1853 served as the final catalyst, shattering 2 centuries of peaceful seclusion in a single afternoon. The sight of massive steam-powered frigates armed with advanced weaponry sent shockwaves through the shogunate's administrative and military leadership. This unprecedented threat triggered an internal political crisis, as the shogunate's inability to repel the foreign vessels exposed the weakness of the existing order. The Boshin War, spanning from 1868 to 1869, represented a violent struggle between the traditional Tokugawa forces and the modernized imperial army. In a grand ceremony in 1868, the young Emperor Meiji was formally elevated as the symbolic and political center of the new Japanese state. The Charter Oath of 1868 established a visionary framework for modern Japan, emphasizing public discourse and the acquisition of global knowledge. The Administrative Revolution of 1871 saw the total abolition of the traditional Han system, effectively centralizing political authority under the imperial government. Rapid infrastructure modernization commenced with the installation of the nation's first telegraph lines between Tokyo and Yokohama in 1869, revolutionizing national communication. A major milestone in modernization was the 1872 opening of the first railway connecting Tokyo and Yokohama, symbolizing the nation's rapid technological acceleration. The Gakusei system of 1872 introduced compulsory primary education, aiming to create a highly literate and technically proficient citizenry for the modern era. The conscription law of 1873 fundamentally altered the social fabric by requiring military service from all adult males, regardless of their previous social class. The land tax reform of 1873 established a stable revenue base for the state, transitioning from traditional crop-based taxes to a modern monetary system. The Iwakura mission, departing in 1871, sent Japan's top leaders on a global journey to renegotiate treaties and study Western political and industrial systems. While in the United States in 1872, the Iwakura mission members meticulously studied the mechanics of American industrial power, visiting massive factories and observing advanced manufacturing techniques. Across Europe, the delegates observed legislative assemblies and constitutional models, seeking to understand the political structures that underpinned Western national strength. The mission's return in 1873 brought back a wealth of knowledge that would directly inform the next 2 decades of Japanese administrative and legal reform. The Seikenron debate of 1873 exposed deep divisions within the government over foreign policy, ultimately leading to a significant political realignment. Saigo Takamori, once a key architect of the Restoration, eventually led the 1877 Satsuma Rebellion, the final major armed challenge to the new imperial government. The Battle of Tabaruzuka in 1877 was the decisive and bloodiest encounter of the Satsuma Rebellion, marking the final sunset of the samurai era. The formal opening of the Imperial Diet in 1890 marked Japan's emergence as Asia's first constitutional monarchy, securing its place among the modern world powers. By the late 1890s, the establishment of the Yawata Steel Works symbolized Japan's successful transition into a heavy industrial power capable of domestic steel production. The Ashio copper mine, a cornerstone of Japan's early industrial expansion in the late 19th century, grew into a massive industrial complex, fueling the nation's rapid modernization efforts. The Rokumeikan era of the 1880s epitomized the rapid westernization of Japanese elite culture as the upper classes adopted Western dress, architecture, and social customs. By the late 1880s, the Imperial Japanese Navy had successfully integrated a modern fleet of steamships, establishing a significant and growing presence on the world stage. The Tokugawa economy relied heavily on the production and distribution of rice, which functioned as a primary medium of exchange and social status during the Edo period. Samurai culture emphasized a balance of martial prowess and intellectual refinement, as demonstrated through the rigorous practice of both swordsmanship and calligraphy. The signing of the Treaty of Kanagawa in 1854 officially ended Japan's policy of national seclusion, opening the ports of Shimoda and Hakodate to American vessels. The rugged and strategic mountains of Kagoshima in the Satsuma domain provided a natural fortress for the ambitious leaders who would eventually spearhead the imperial restoration. The establishment of modern silk mills, such as the Tomioka silk mill in 1872, became a primary driver of Japan's early industrial exports and foreign currency earnings. By the 1880s, the streets of Tokyo were a vibrant tapestry of tradition and modernity, as horse-drawn carriages navigated past Western-style brick buildings. The Naval Academy, established on the Western model, produced a new generation of officers who would transform Japan into a formidable maritime power in the Pacific. The architectural landscape of Tokyo was rapidly transformed by the construction of grand Western-style government buildings and banks, symbolizing the nation's new global aspirations. Medical reforms introduced Western surgical techniques and sanitation standards, leading to the establishment of modern hospitals and a significant improvement in public health. Formal military parades at the Imperial Palace served as powerful displays of the Meiji state's centralized authority and its successful military modernization. The establishment of a national postal system in 1871, complete with standardized postage stamps, represented a critical step in building the modern Japanese state's administrative infrastructure. The abolition of the samurai's hereditary stipends forced many former warriors to reinvent themselves as merchants and farmers, fundamentally shifting the nation's social and economic focus. The Meek coal mine in the 1880s became a symbol of Japan's industrial might, utilizing massive steam-powered infrastructure to fuel the nation's growing energy needs. At the Nagasaki shipyard, the construction of modern iron-hulled steamships marked Japan's emergence as a significant maritime and industrial power in the late 19th century. The reconstruction of Ginza as a brick town in the 1870s introduced fire-resistant Western-style architecture and gas lighting, transforming Tokyo's urban identity. The modernization of the legal system in the 1880s established professional courtrooms and a Western-style judiciary, ensuring the rule of law in a rapidly changing society. The first modern national census in 1872 provided the government with the essential data needed to implement radical social and economic reforms across the empire. Inside the new post offices, a professionalized workforce utilized standardized scales and sorting systems to manage the nation's rapidly expanding communication network. The opening of modern national banks in the 1870s, complete with heavy iron safes and paper currency, provided the financial stability required for industrial growth. In Hokkaido, the introduction of Western-style plows and large-scale farming techniques transformed the northern frontier into a highly productive agricultural region. Public libraries became centers of intellectual transformation, where scholars studied Western scientific and political texts alongside traditional Japanese literature. The rise of a modern press in the 1880s, utilizing high-speed rotary printing presses, fostered the development of public opinion and a more informed Japanese citizenry. The introduction of gas street lighting in districts like Ginza during the 1880s fundamentally altered the urban experience, extending the hours of commerce and social activity into the night. The Saga Rebellion of 1874, led by disgruntled former samurai, highlights the violent internal friction caused by the rapid dismantling of the feudal class structure. The creation of a modern uniformed police force in the 1870s established a centralized system of internal security, replacing the localized authority of the samurai. The construction of grand Western-style hotels in Tokyo signaled Japan's readiness to host international guests and its adoption of neoclassical architectural standards. The opening of the Imperial Museum in the 1880s provided a space for the systematic preservation and display of Japan's artistic heritage within a modern institutional framework. The transformation of traditional dry goods stores into modern department stores like Mitsukoshi revolutionized the Japanese retail experience, introducing fixed prices and window displays. Dietary westernization, exemplified by the consumption of beef and bread, became a visible symbol of modernity and a significant departure from traditional Japanese culinary habits. The introduction of electric street lighting by the Tokyo Electric Light Company in the late 19th century brought a new era of safety and nocturnal activity to the nation's capital. The Danpatsure Edict of 1871, which encouraged the removal of the samurai topknot, served as a profound, visible marker of Japan's break from its feudal past and its embrace of Western modernity. Under the guidance of foreign advisors, Japanese students at institutions like the Imperial College of Engineering mastered the technical skills necessary to build and maintain the nation's new industrial infrastructure. The Osaka Mint, established in 1871 with state-of-the-art European machinery, provided the modern gold and silver currency essential for Japan's transition to a globalized capitalist economy. Japanese engineers and craftsmen rapidly adapted Western steam technology, beginning the indigenous production of engines that would power the nation's burgeoning factories and transportation networks. At the 1873 Vienna World Expo, Japan's Grand Pavilion showcased the sophisticated craftsmanship of the East alongside the emerging industrial potential of a rapidly modernizing nation. Light industries such as matchstick manufacturing provided critical employment opportunities and became significant early components of Japan's growing export economy. The signing of the Japan-Korea Treaty of 1876 represented Japan's first significant exercise of modern diplomatic and military power within its immediate regional sphere. The establishment of a national meteorological service provided the modern state with the essential data needed for maritime safety, agricultural planning, and disaster prevention. The construction of Japan's first modern iron-hulled warships in domestic dry docks symbolized the nation's rapid ascent as a significant naval power in the Pacific. The inclusion of foreign educators in elementary schools ensured that the next generation of Japanese citizens would be equipped with the linguistic and scientific knowledge of the modern world. Western performing arts, such as opera, were introduced to Japan as part of a broader cultural project to align Japanese elite society with international standards of civilization and refinement. The modernization of ancient mining sites like the Sato gold mine through the introduction of steam power and deep shaft engineering dramatically increased the nation's mineral wealth. The Battle of Shiroyama in 1877 represented the tragic final stand of Saigo Takamori and his samurai rebels, effectively ending the era of armed resistance to the Meiji state. The introduction of Western-style uniforms for postal workers in 1871 served as a visible daily reminder of the government's commitment to administrative modernization across all levels of society. The construction of the Lake Biwa Canal in the 1880s, a masterpiece of modern civil engineering, provided essential water and power to fuel the industrial growth of Kyoto. The establishment of the Red Cross Society of Japan in 1877 marked the nation's formal entry into international humanitarian networks and its adoption of modern medical relief standards. The introduction of Western sports like baseball in the 1870s reflected a broader enthusiasm for Western culture and the development of modern physical education in Japanese schools. The first modern art exhibitions of the 1880s showcased a unique period of artistic hybridization, where traditional Japanese aesthetics began to dialogue with Western oil painting techniques. Within the nation's busy telegraph offices, operators utilizing Morse code facilitated the near-instantaneous transmission of information, a revolutionary leap from the courier systems of the past. The introduction of the mechanical sewing machine in the 1880s transformed the Japanese garment industry, enabling the mass production of both traditional and Western-style attire. The Yokohama foreign settlement in the 1860s became a crucial gateway for the introduction of Western technology, architecture, and political thought into Japan. The introduction of coastal steamships revolutionized domestic travel for commoners, drastically reducing journey times and connecting distant regions of the Japanese archipelago. The employment of French and German military advisors in the 1870s brought Western tactics and weaponry to the new Imperial Japanese Army, ensuring its modernization. The construction of the stone Kanonzaki Lighthouse in 1869 marked the birth of modern Japanese maritime safety and essential coastal infrastructure development. The adoption of the Gregorian calendar in 1873 symbolized Japan's alignment with Western administrative standards and its departure from traditional lunar timekeeping. The deployment of advanced silk spinning machinery allowed Japanese mills to achieve a level of industrial precision that soon rivaled the finest textile producers in Europe. Japan's participation in the 1876 Philadelphia Centennial Exposition showcased its traditional craftsmanship and new industrial products to a global audience for the first time. The introduction of Western-style steam fire engines in the 1880s provided Japanese cities with modern tools to combat the perennial threat of urban conflagration. The First Sino-Japanese War, breaking out in 1894, provided the first major test of Japan's modernized conscript army against a traditional regional power. During the Russo-Japanese War, the massive land engagement at Mukden in 1905 demonstrated Japan's ability to execute complex, modern trench warfare on an unprecedented scale. The decisive naval victory at the Battle of Tsushima in 1905 shocked the globe, definitively establishing Japan as a first-tier world power. The construction of Tokyo Station, a monumental red brick structure completed towards the end of the Meiji era, served as the central hub of the nation's now extensive railway network. The modernization of the food and beverage industry, exemplified by the establishment of the Sapporo Brewery, demonstrated Japan's rapid mastery of complex Western fermentation processes. In Hokkaido, government-sponsored dairy farms introduced Western livestock and agricultural practices, fundamentally altering the Japanese diet and agricultural economy. The introduction of the first electric trams in Kyoto during the 1890s revolutionized urban transportation, facilitating the rapid expansion of modern city life. The Meiji Restoration remains an unparalleled model of national transformation, proving that a country can modernize without surrendering its core cultural heritage. By the end of the 19th century, Japan had established itself as a major world power, fundamentally altering the balance of global political influence forever. Thank you for joining us for this 76th chapter of history. We hope this deep academic study has brought the vibrant world of Meiji Japan to life for you. We appreciate your viewership and commitment to learning about the events that built our modern world. 구독과 좋아요를 눌러주세요. 감사합니다.